and welcome to episode number 23 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And this is our final episode before the season starts. Very exciting. We've been in off-season mode for, 21 of our 23 episodes, but we're finally getting back into the regular season. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Nice to get the season started back up, especially starting on time. Unlike last year at this time, we were just, opening day passed and there was no baseball. So thankful that there will be baseball in April. And I am very much looking forward to defending my title.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to have a real regular season for the first time in 2 years, real regular season matchups. And today we're going to be previewing all 6 matchups. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll see, pick which of the matchups are the most exciting and which teams we think will win.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I know we had a lot of fun previewing the semis and the finals matchups in the fall when we first started out, but it'll be nice to preview everybody's matchups this time around.
For sure. But yeah, we got a lot to get to today. Before that, first and foremost, there was another trade in the league. The Stanton Stranglers, Eric's team, traded Jordan Groshans to EBO for their 2022 first. So a prospect for a pick, but it is a little more exciting than your standard prospect pick trade. What do you think of this one, Sahil?
Yeah, I thought that this was a relatively even deal. Groshans is 76th overall in Fangraphs. He's a very solid hitting prospect overall. He's got a lot of hype, did very well in high A in 2019. He had a 167 WRC plus, although that came in 23 games. I think that he will crack the Blue Jays roster sometime over the next couple of years, and I think that they'll give him an opportunity to succeed. So all for him as a prospect. And I think he's roughly worth a first-round pick. I was a little curious why Eric wanted to trade him away, though. Like, I feel like he had other prospects in the farm system that were not quite as good that he just could have gotten rid of, such as like Jordan Groshans, for example. And he could have kept, Groshans. But I think overall the value is pretty fair. I mean, perhaps he just wanted the pick, but I think I'd slightly lean EBO just because I think I'd rather have Groshans than the pick, but I think that this is pretty much even value.
I agree about the value. Yeah, Groshans I'd probably slightly rather have than the pick, since the pick is going to be most likely at the end of the first round, but who knows really. Zane and Max have wide error bars around their team this year, but Groshans is, he's a top 100 prospect, a little bit higher on some lists, and he is more proven than whoever that pick is going to turn out to be. So I think I'd probably rather have him. But on the other hand, there are some playing time issues surrounding him with all the good infielders that the Blue Jays do have at the major league level. And the one thing that's interesting to me is, how does a trade like this how do they decide that this is what both teams want to do? Because Groshans, like you said, is one of Eric's better prospects. He's not exactly shopping him around. If he was looking to clear a prospect slot, he would give up someone else. Was it Zane just saying, hey, I've got 3 picks next year, I want to get rid of one right now? And
I think a couple things. One, he did put Groshans in the trade block in Slack, so I don't think this came out of nowhere. I actually asked him what the price would be on Groshans, and he said a first, and I told him, like, if I had a first-round pick to give you, I would have done that. But obviously I didn't. I traded that to Zane to get P. Crow Armstrong, so that's one thing I'll have to be debating moving forward. But then I think from EBO's perspective, they have a bunch of picks. I mean, even after trading away their first-round pick, they still have your first-round pick, and they have Connor's first-round pick next year, as well as 2 second-round picks in the third, like 2 firsts in 2023, a first in 2024, 3 firsts in 2025. I mean, so it makes sense for them. They have all these picks. Might as well trade some of them for prospects at some point. And I guess for some reason, Eric really wanted to put Groshans in the block.
Yeah, I wonder if that message Groshans on the block was after he received that offer from Zane. I know that's a strategy that you do.
Yeah, it could have been. I'm not really sure. I'd definitely love to hear from Zane and Eric kind of about how those negotiations went down. But yeah, at a first glance, it does seem a little random. I would say, though, that I feel like Eric has not been averse to trading Groshans all offseason. Like, I definitely feel like I've had conversations even before he explicitly mentioned him in the Slack a few days ago. I feel like I've talked to him about Groshans a couple times, but nothing too serious because I never had the pieces to get him. But I get the sense that this just wasn't something that was a spur of the moment for Eric. Like, he made a conscious decision that Groshans was expendable, maybe for some of the reasons you mentioned, with playing time concerns. Although I always feel like if the talent's there, it's going to work its way out either by an injury or a trade or just winning a job or whatever.
That's true, but Eric, maybe he just didn't have the patience for that, especially with wanting to compete. Although he is rostering Josh Rojas right now, so he wouldn't really have an issue, I guess, theoretically, having Groshans on his bench should he come up and say lose prospect eligibility but not be getting the playing time immediately.
Well, I think it works the opposite way, though, because whoever he drafts is inevitably going to take longer to get to the majors, most likely.
That's true. Yeah, it does buy him a little time in that respect. I'm saying he doesn't necessarily need to buy time.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're in agreement here that I think we'd rather have Groshans, and kind of questioning Eric's maybe motive here a little bit. Although we know Eric, he always seems to have a plan and it always seems to work out. So
he does. And we know 10 minutes after this episode's posted, one of us will get a Slack message from him explaining just why this trade went down.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to hear your thoughts on this, Eric.
Yeah, I am curious because the value, I think, is, like we said, the value's fine, I'd say. He probably, from a value perspective, slightly lost the deal, but yeah, the motivation on both sides, the motivation's a little just kind of curious, not putting the trade down by any means.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say on motivation, maybe the one thing I think about early on is that Eric didn't have a first round pick going into this year before you owned that pick. So maybe he just wanted to get back in the first round. So
that's true. The first round is 10 months from now, though.
Yeah, but maybe he likes his class of prospects.
That's true.
Who knows? You've loaded up on picks for this year. You have 7 of them. So I'm not saying that you definitely like this year's class of prospects, but there's maybe some logic to it at least.
Yeah, I do. It's more that I didn't love last year's class of prospects, and yeah, this year's is going to be good. And the fact being that I'm going to be graduating a lot more people this year than I was last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But yeah, speaking of people who recently graduated, Eloy Jimenez on Connor's team is going to be missing a substantial amount of time this year, 5 to 6 months from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, ruptured pectoral tendon while he was trying to rob Yellow Champ catcher Sean Murphy of a home run. That is a bummer. Before we get into Connor's team, I just Googled Eloy to confirm what exactly the injury was. And one of the first articles that came up was Yoelqui Cespedes as Eloy Jimenez's replacement, quote, premature.
Interesting.
I'd be pretty shocked if he reaches the majors this year, but I'm surprised anybody's even considering him as a potential replacement.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. He's 22, I think. Yeah, he's 23. He's that age. And I guess he's not necessarily. Oh, he's got his brother's ears. That's funny. But he maybe not necessarily major league ready. But who really knows? I don't know a ton about him. There's not a ton of data. He's just some scouting reports and the fact that he's 23 years old. I wouldn't be shocked if he was in the majors, even this May.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could definitely make it at some point this season. I don't think he's making the opening day roster, which I feel like everyone knew, but just kind of interesting to think about that. That maybe he is discussion. So I forget who drafted Yoelqui Cespedes. Actually, Connor did.
Yeah.
funny enough. So maybe Connor already has a replacement in-house, but it's a great transition to talk about the effect that it's going to have on his team. And at first glance for me, I mean, we've talked about this offseason, how Connor is kind of transitioning out from this explicit rebuild mode where he was in the first couple of years, the worst team in the league after coming off one of the worst auto drafts. I'm so sorry we gave you Chris Davis, Connor. But, he's made some interesting moves. He traded away Bobby Wood Jr., who, by the way, looks really good. I wonder if that trade might eventually come back to bite him. But he's got Jose Barrios now from that trade, who is a really solid rotation piece. And, he's got names like Giolito. And then on the offense, he still had, he got Verdugo this offseason. He's a great young piece. He got Eddie Rosario, who's a little older. I think he's 29, but still a very solid fantasy contributor and someone who's got my heart. And Alberto Mondesi, Gio Urshela. So this is a roster that I wasn't ready to call him a postseason favorite or anything, but I thought that that Connor could be competing for the 6th seed this year. Probably not my favorite to beat a 6th seed, but I think with the Eloy news, I wonder if that causes Connor to maybe be like, this isn't my year. I'm gunning more towards next year and maybe making some moves kind of based off of that. He's got, a couple players that maybe aren't fitting into the timeline this year. For example, Roberto Osuna, who looks like he won't pitch his next full season until next year. Maybe that may even make somebody like Eddie Rosario a bit expendable. Travis d'Arnaud, who I don't know how old Travis d'Arnaud is now. It feels like he's been in the league forever.
He might be 33, I think.
He's 32. He just turned 32. So maybe that makes someone like him expendable. Maybe he goes out and gets a younger catcher, or he has Joey Bart in the minors. So I wonder if we might subtly see him more gearing towards next year instead of making a big push this year. But what are your thoughts, Cam?
Well, the one thing you neglected to mention is that the front runner to be the White Sox replacement for Eloy is Andrew Vaughn, who is also on Connor's team. So Connor's really kind of covered his bases here. That's what happens when you own all the White Sox, is that you own all the backups for the White Sox when they get hurt. But yeah, that would be exciting. Vaughn is currently projected to be the starting DH after some shifting after Eloy's injury. So that would be kind of helpful for him and exciting to see him up in the majors. He's a great bat. And yeah, I think if Eloy is out for the season, then that, I guess, kind of puts a real damper on all of the hype I had for Connor this season. It did all depend on him having enough hitting to put him over the top, because we both agree that his pitching is still good, even if he is kind of wasting a roster spot on Osuna. But one of his best hitters being out for the year, that's a big blow to anyone, but especially if your bats are as thin as Connor's are, that's pretty devastating.
I agree. I think this is a playoff caliber rotation. And I'd say that, he also has a lot of those young arms in the minors. We talked about that when we did the prospects episode, that some of whom could realistically come up this year and make a big difference. And it's nice that he has two anchors in Giolito and Barrios, who I think are two of the better and more consistent starters in the majors. But you're right. I mean, you could argue that Eloy was maybe even his top hitter, period. Getting rid of a guy like Eloy, who did lead his team in home runs last year and was second in RBIs, referring to Connor's team, that's definitely a big hit. So I definitely think lost her of his team than I did, but I still think the future's bright. We'll get more into Connor's team as we talk about the previews here, but do you want to turn to the Defining Moments tournament?
Yeah, let's do it. It did take over the slack, but last week, a couple weeks ago, Eric did the second annual Defining Moments tournament. Always a lot of fun. Basically, what that is Eric compiled 68 of the top moments in league history, broke them up into 4 different categories: big events, drafts and meetings, big trades, and unusual trades, etc. And we did a bracket style March Madness type tournament, voted on all the events, and eventually decided on a winner, which was the same winner as last year.
Yeah, if I hear the name Shohei Ohtani in the next 24 hours, I'm going to strangle someone, to which Max responded, the pitcher or the hitter, which was tweeted out eventually by Max Grill. We missed him in the league. He was fun on draft day. I'm not surprised that won again. That's just such a great moment. And as Eric pointed out, like in every round it's been in this tournament and in last year's tournament, it won pretty much by a landslide. We did see a Cinderella run to the Final Four, though. Alex trades a pick he doesn't have. I was a little baffled that made it to the Final Four. I thought for sure it would either lose in the Elite Eight to Kyle Lewis gets traded for himself, which I thought was a little more notable, or where I really thought it should have lost and what I thought was the most just blasphemous result was EBO, including Juan Soto in a trade as a throw-in, losing to it. I just think the whole story of how they did it, where they had Turner for Rogers set up and Max is like, oh, I feel bad, let's throw in Soto, just like makes it so much funnier than kind of just a random trade on draft day where there was a mistake on the spreadsheet and he thought he had a pick, but he didn't. But I think the right moment won the bracket. So I guess I'm not going to be too picky here. And I guess it was nice to see a 12 seed making it to the Final Four, considering the other 3 seeds that made it to the Final Four were 1 seeds. But there were quite a few upsets throughout the bracket. So definitely interesting to see, and always a fun activity as we got March Madness starting.
Yeah, that is true. The moment that won is truly the defining moment of the league. We even named the podcast after it. Funny enough, it defeated us starting the podcast in the Final Four. So the pitcher or the hitter defeated the pitcher or the hitter. But yeah, on Alex trading the pick he doesn't have, I think a lot of us just kind of got caught up in the Cinderella story of it. It's a funny moment. It just kind of got there's some weight in kind of a funny 12 seed being taken all the way to the Final Four. It wasn't much of a defining moment, as in there wasn't any sort of impact. But on the other hand, Juan Soto was a throw-in. Speak to that trade. It did happen before half of the current members of the league joined, and it's kind of one of the things that it had a lot of impact down the road, obviously. But at the time, it was just a minor leaguer being used as a throw-in before a lot of teams knew how to value prospects.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. And if there's one thing this league does is it hops on a trend and it just goes with it because it's funny. And I do love that about this league. But yeah, I think that definitely, I think just from a pure which one was a more defining moment perspective, I do think that probably shouldn't have made it that far. One that I was really disappointed about was the first defining moments tournament, lost to us starting a podcast in the Sweet 16, because I think the first defining moments tourney winning the second defining moments tourney would have been really funny, and that definitely would have been a defining moment that we would have put on the third defining moments tourney bracket. Could you imagine the first defining moments tourney winning the second defining moments tourney winning the third defining moments tourney?
Yeah, I could imagine, since I was the one who initially posed that question in the Slack. But that would be really funny, and I was really hoping we could kind of get people to rally around that, but it ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw in the Sweet 16. A little sad, but there's so many great moments, and a lot of them are still happening. 2 of the Final 4 happened since the previous defining moments tourney, so there's a lot of fun stuff happening in the league. There are 15 or so events that feel like buzzsaws. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really was. A lot of these were not easy to pick between. So, and I'm sorry for stealing your idea. I thought somebody else made it, and I was just bringing their idea to the podcast, but I forgot it was you.
It was, but that's okay. But yeah, one of my favorite matchup, I would say, my personal favorite would be the Sweet 16 matchup of Anthony takes over Team Resnick, never changes name, against Connor gets a co-owner, and it's truly great that those went against each other in the Sweet 16 because they're both very similar, funny stories around a team name, with Anthony using the name of a former co-owner and Connor having just a misprint on one of the roto standings one day, being something that we've decided to run with as an inside joke ever since, the team being owned by Connor and Connor now. And that's just what the league's all about, weird quirks like that.
Well, no, not a misprint. Remember, he tried to log into a different ESPN account to get access to his team and just like added Connor again. And then one of us noticed that
that's right.
Connor had added himself, so it looked like Connor and Connor. So now he is forever Connor and Connor.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. I thought a really tough matchup came in the round of 32 with the Kyle drafts. Eric Hosmer gets standing ovation, and Max puts the half and half Ohtani sticker on the board.
Yeah, that made a big run in last year's Defining Moments tournament, did it?
Didn't it? I think. Let's see if I can pull that up here. The half and half, they faced each other in last year's bracket too.
Really?
They did, and Eric Hosmer won that time as well. They faced each other in the round of 32 again. And then the Hosmer won in the Sweet 16 over you dressing up for the presentation at the 2018 winter meetings. And then Hosmer lost in the Elite Eight to the pitcher or the hitter, the OG one. So,
yeah, I think the half and half Ohtani sticker was underseeded both times.
It was. I mean, he literally
did
them the same, and it had the same matchups. I think next year we might need to reseed these a little better, but definitely kind of hit a buzzsaw. There's a lot of those early on though, where I was like, damn, like this kind of sucks that it hit a buzzsaw as early as it did.
Yeah, are there any others that come to mind for you that could have made a deep run but lost in the first or second round?
You're not going to like this, but Heriberto, just because of the meme that he's become in this league, losing in a round of 32, I thought maybe that could have made it a bit higher. EBO's Goldschmidt for bet steal losing in a round of 32 to the bets for Acuna deal that Ruthvik and Alex made. You know, just like I feel like the Betts deal is the Betts Goldschmidt deal is one of the most lopsided deals like over the past year. So I'm mildly surprised it didn't go further. See if the round of 64 had any good ones. Me talking for 20 straight minutes about Biggio, wow. I'm not surprised it didn't make it out of the first round of the bracket, but it's always funny when I look at that because that's totally something I'd do. EBO drafting Tim Tebow, I think it's probably fair. It only made it to the round of 64, but maybe that could have won one more round. The Wine Ambassador Trophy lost in a round of 64, and that was a little disappointing. The Eric Cam rivalry lost in a round 64 to the Cam and Duncan taking dispute.
Yeah, that's a little surprising. I guess we haven't had a chance to see the rivalry in action yet, so that could be something that's higher in the future if it gets heated during a regular season or playoff matchup even.
No, definitely. And the last one I'll point out is even earlier. The Garrett Cole deal not making it out of the first four, I thought was a little surprising. I mean, it had a tough matchup against the DeGrom Strasburg deal that Eric made with Ruthvik, and it was a 6-5 vote. But that Cole deal was, I mean, arguably the biggest deal for a pitcher at that time. And there were a lot of teams vying for Garrett Cole. And I just remember when Zane made the Kershaw trade with the Cohens, the one trade that they made before they just like became irrelevant and dropped out of the league. That really motivated me to make the extra push to go get Garrett Cole because Anthony was pretty adamant on holding on to him before that. So, I feel like that comes with a great story. I'm glad I made that trade, obviously, and maybe it could have gone a little farther. But I think the fact you're seeing some of these great moments losing early on is just indicative of how many great moments we've had in 3 years in the league. So definitely a good sign. And I'm sure the decisions are only going to get harder as we do these brackets even more because there's going to be some stuff we're really going to want to put in that just gets eliminated because new stuff comes up.
Yeah, that's true. Next year we'll have to do a defining moments NIT. I know there was talk of that even this year.
We might have to. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, or maybe you have to do multiple brackets a year just to cover these. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe the league's ultimate defining moment is something that hasn't happened yet. Maybe it'll happen between now and the time the podcast drops. Who knows? I don't know what could top Max's quote from draft night, but you never know.
Maybe I'd trade Tatis for Franco. Maybe that would
See,
top it.
see that happened before, and it was an 8 seed.
Tatis got traded for Franco before?
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting this?
Yep.
Oh, dear God. Oh, my God. Or a five seed, it looks like.
The 5 seed, yeah.
But still. And then Tatis was traded for Soto, and that only made a 2 seed. So
there's no trade that would be more unbelievable unless Anthony finally trades Mike Trout. And it's part of a 3-team deal. There's no trade that's going to be crazier than the trade that have already happened.
Now Anthony trades Mike Trout to Connor. Connor trades Yoel Moncada to me, and I trade Christian Yelich to Anthony.
I don't think any of the 3 of you accept that deal.
Oh, obviously not. I'd be getting the worst player in that deal, but I think Connor might. You're telling me if you're Connor, as much of a White Sox fan as you are, you wouldn't trade Yoel Moncada for Mike Trout.
That's, I mean, I'd like to think he would trade Yoel Moncada for Mike Trout.
I like to think he would too.
There'd have to be something like that. Maybe, I know we've done drafts. Duncan made a draft of a 12-team deal one time a couple summers ago. If one of those happens, that'll be, unless it's a really lame trade like the 2 more recent 3-team deals, that'd be a 1 seed easy.
Yeah, I am hoping for another like real 3-team deal. I feel like the problem is the league has just gotten so much more competitive that like we're all kind of skeptical of other teams just being like, oh, I'm just going to go and take that player for myself instead of like kind of working together in a 3-team deal. That I wonder if it is going to happen again, but I'm hoping for another 3-team trade at some point because that was the one that we did the first year of the league was a lot of fun to negotiate. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that really kind of helped set a good direction for my team.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it got me Suarez for a couple of years, and I think it really was a good deal for all involved.
Yeah, I think it ended up being a win-win.
And even that deal was bumped in the round of 32.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yep, it lost. It was an 8 seed, and it lost to the Juan Soto thing. I did my part and voted for the 3-team deal.
Which Juan Soto one did it lose to? Because there's like
Juan Soto was a throw-in.
Yeah. I don't know. The only thing that makes the Juan Soto for a throw-in even like a little more interesting, and maybe I even voted for that, was just it was the first trade of this league. Like there's something about that trade and just how it defined how the rest of the league was going to go, where it just makes it hard.
Defining is half of the words in the name of defining moments.
And it was a moment, so it meets
that is
true. Both of the criteria. Oh man,
a lot of these aren't exactly moments. For example,
the Roto regular season.
Yeah, Roto regular season's a long moment.
Heriberto is just like a continuing event. It's just once a week somebody mentions Heriberto, usually me, and then Yuki is just like Heriberto sucks, and then someone's like, oh well, your mom sucks, and you know,
it's a little tedious.
Just a little bit, yeah. Even I feel like I'm not even that high at Heriberto. It's just kind of the way it's kind of been like discussed in this league. I feel like I'm just defending him now just for the heck of it. And it's funny because I'm the one who traded him away.
Yeah.
You wanna get on to OOTP here? Is there anything else about the defining moments you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I think we've covered the defining moments pretty well. I'll say
one last thing for anybody who hasn't checked it out yet. The whole defining moments bracket is on the spreadsheet. So if you want to look at individual results, Eric did a great job of putting them out there. So definitely check it out.
Absolutely. But yeah, I guess one more thing before to kind of close off the off season that I've been doing is I, for the second season in a row, am simulating the entire season in OOTP. So much like last year, I did 30-man roster, 20-man reserve roster in OOTP, and yeah, simulating the season, 162 games. Players are accumulating stats, teams are making trades, making some really terrible decisions, and it's a lot of fun. Anthony won the league the first time, and as of recording, I've simulated the first month, and the two of us are in first place in our respective divisions.
Yeah, great to see that I am doing so well. I mean, I'm not surprised. What I am surprised about, though, is that I've cut Kyle Hendricks, Max Fried, Jose Urquidy, and Aaron Nola. I mean, signing Zach Gallen was nice, but like still, and then trading away Kevin Biggio and Pico Armstrong for Roberto Osuna and Nate Pearson is not exactly something I'd like to do in real life. Nor do I really want Josh James and Sir Anthony Dominguez, who is signed for some reason. But my guess is OOTP recognizes that I have so many starters that they're just trying to get me relievers, I guess. I'm not sure, but I'll take the 17 and 11 start.
Yeah, it does. It's basically just trying to get you relievers. It wants 3 catchers on every team's roster, which is a little much. So like it's given me. Actually, no, it's just called up my minor league catchers, including Tyler Soderstrom, who's very much not ready for the majors.
Did you input our minor league rosters in there as well, or just our major league rosters?
Minor league rosters as well.
Okay,
but so teams are cutting a lot of their prospects in exchange for relievers and bench guys. So it's a little unrealistic, especially compared to what you would do in a fantasy league, but it's a lot of fun.
My conspiracy theory with you already being in first in the standings is that you're just doing this so for once you could say that you won the league. But
if I was doing that, I would not have cut Jeter Downs or some of the other guys. I cut Vidal Brujan. I cut Jose Quintana. I cut Zach Wheeler. I would, if I was cheating, I would not have made a lot of these moves.
Yeah, I can't say I cut half of my rotation. I know that Alex would really like me to cut Aaron Nola because I know he's been gunning to get him back ever since he traded him to me. But
yeah, Aaron Nola was actually signed by Eric.
Oh, there you go. Of course, Eric. I love a world where Aaron Nola just casually gets caught and thrown into free agency. It's like, all right, someone got to pick him up. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So why don't you explain how you're going to do this? Are you going to finish the simulation before the season? Are you going to do this month by month? We're going to talk about it like once a month. How are you going to do this?
Yeah, so I guess much like last time, I'm going to simulate 1 month every day. And then the playoffs, I think I'll do a couple rounds a day and just kind of try and do it live with as many people as possible. Try and do the World Series pitch by pitch like last time, or at least the 7th game since it went to 7 games last time, and have it done on opening day. There's a week at the time of recording until opening day, so it should just line up with a real baseball starting.
Oh, I love that. So we'll be able to know who the predicted winner is beforehand. We can see how accurate this all ends up being. I like that.
Yeah, I don't expect it to have any sort of degree of accuracy with all the weird moves and OOTP's evaluations of players being different a little bit, but Aaron Nola isn't even rated that highly. That's the thing. But yeah, I'm very curious. I did well last time. I'm doing well this time. EBO, it does not like their reliever strategy. The game made them sign a bunch of 2.5 star starting pitchers to just kind of fill out the back of the rotation, and it is costing them. So it's a lot of just kind of differences between fantasy and real world that it's exposing.
Definitely. We'll see how this works out. I can't wait to watch the finals.
Absolutely. And yeah, are you ready to break down the week 1 matchups?
Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, 6 matchups to break down. Which one do you want to start with first?
Yeah, so let's start with, I guess, what in my mind is the most intriguing matchup of week 1, and that is EBO versus Eric. Two teams that have faced off in the playoffs multiple times, and now they're squaring off in the first week of the regular season.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun matchup, and I don't know if I can tell you who's going to win. EBO is having definitely some injury issues right now that hurts, and they're all in their bullpen. So Drew Pomerantz is day to day right now. He's scheduled to pitch on Friday, but they're not sure if he's going to avoid a stint on the IL. Kirby Yates just got Tommy John, or he's going to get Tommy John, which is a rough break. Aroldis Chapman's going to miss the first couple of games with the suspension, and Jose Leclerc is going to miss an extended period with elbow soreness. So looks like EBO is going to have to go to the waiver wire, pick up some relievers. They already picked up Jose Alvarado. They picked up Chris Martin earlier. I know they're still trying to actually trade some of their relievers too. So we'll see what that bullpen looks like going into the first week, but already a precarious start for that strategy. But their offense looks really solid and healthy, other than Joey Votto being currently listed as out with COVID. It looks like the rest of their offense is healthy. It should be ready to go. And I definitely think they'll have the offensive advantage over Eric. He's starting Josh Rojas, like Eric Hosmer, Dylan Moore, decent, but not really the caliber of guys that Zane has. Same with Leody Taveras. I'm personally not that high on Teoscar Hernandez, so that'll be, I don't really know. Eric's definitely going to win all the starting pitcher categories. And the bullpen, despite EBO's injuries, I think he'll probably win most of the pitching categories because, like, Eric's only relievers, and again, this could change, or Devin Williams, TJ Antone, and Tyler Duffy, which is a little bit weird considering what Eric's reliever strategy has been the past couple of years of loading up on holds. But it seems like if EBO could just, do decent with the reliever stats and, their offense performs as they should based off the track record, they should win this matchup. But, Eric's going to work his magic and make this close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eric always does find a way to make it close, figure out how to flip a couple categories. But yeah, most importantly, this is the debut of EBO's reliever strategy. We get to see how it looks in real life, how it looks against a team that's got decent pitching and a team that has, I guess, worse hitting than them due to the fact that EBO was able to stock up on hitters. And it's just we've talked about it so much over the past 4 months, and we get to finally see what it looks like. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's definitely the matchup I'll be keeping the closest eye on. And one more thing about Eric, I mean, you mentioned to me yesterday the schedule that he has to start the season. He plays EBO, and he plays Roots, Vic, and Nick, and then he plays you. Now, the schedule gets a little bit easier after that, but I wouldn't be surprised if he starts 0-3.
Yeah, that's not unreasonable to say. It'd be interesting to see what he does to his team after an 0-3 start.
Yeah, if I had to guess, he'd probably just hold the course and just be like, well, I kind of had a shitty schedule to start out with. But he plays Andrew week 4, so assuming that's when he does play the 3 of the 4 weeks after that are Connor, then he plays Alex, and then he plays Clayton and Jake, and then he plays me. So that's not the easiest stretch either. And you wonder if maybe he's looking at something like a 3-5 record after those first 8 weeks. I'm not saying that could happen. He could easily be like 5-3, for example, or maybe even better. But maybe it causes him to make some more moves, maybe as the calendar turns into May. Especially the roster, just personally, just not looking that impressive in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of places he can improve, and there's a lot of places he might need to improve. And with that farm system of his, he's got a lot of pieces to help him get some get some hot bats into his lineup.
Absolutely. And quickly on EVO's schedule, it's not the easiest start either. They play Eric the first week, and then Connor, who, even with the Eloy injury, I don't think is someone you could just easily dispose of. And keep in mind, second season, Connor beat Eric and Zane in back-to-back weeks. So never ruled Connor out. But then they play Rusvik and Nick week 3, and then you week 4. So that again, could be maybe hypothetically a 2-2 start. I tend to think they'll probably come out of that 4-week span being something like 3-1. And the schedule does really lighten up after that. They play Andrew, Yuki, Daniel, and Alex, Anthony, and then Alex and Zach in like a 5-week span before the schedule gets a lot harder again. But could be an interesting start for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of good teams in this league, and they can't all win every time.
Definitely. Want to talk about our next matchup here?
Yeah, so that's certainly the most interesting one. And in the future, we're probably going to only highlight 1 or 2 matchups as a preview. But this week, since there weren't any matchups last week, we're going to just dive into all of them. So I guess the next one I'm interested in is your team versus Clayton and Jake. Yeah, you being the defending champions, is there any sort of hangover for your players? But also Clayton and Jake is a team that we were both pretty high on. We both think that they're number 5 or number 6, and I'm excited to see how they fare in their first showing of this season, where the expectations are kind of high despite the fact that they didn't do super well in the Roto League. I just want to see how it works for them.
Yeah, I'll start off with their team first with a couple things to highlight. So, as we've mentioned earlier this offseason, they do have 3 DH only players. And I do think eventually there's a chance that Soler and or JD Martinez gain outfield eligibility. But that won't be the case for the start of the season. And I know Jake posted a couple of days ago that Soler is still in the block. If he hasn't been moved, they're going to have to figure out how to cycle through those 3 during the opening 10 days. Now, off days are going to solve that problem to a degree, but that could rob them a little bit of some offensive firepower that they might, otherwise be able to get in the lineup if one of them played a non-DH position. They don't have too many notable injuries to speak of. I mean, Clevenger is obviously out for the season. Frankie Montas did leave his last start with a ripped cuticle in his right middle finger, so maybe that puts his status for opening day a little bit in doubt. The Strasburg injury that came up was like wild. It was like a tendon like injury to like his calf or something like that. But like it's like not like that big of a deal. He's not listed as injured on ESPN, but that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. And he did only pitch 5 innings in 2020. So, curious to see what effect that has on him come opening day. And in turning to my team, I got injuries as well. Zach Britton is going to start the year on the IL. Sonny Gray, I think, might miss his first start or 2. It looks like a short-term thing. You might have a little more insight on that, Cam, as a Reds fan.
Yeah, he's probably going to miss opening day, which sucks. But I don't think he's going to miss more than 1 or 2 starts.
So if he only misses 1 start, or maybe even if he misses 2 starts, it could potentially put him in play for the back half of the week, since the first week is 10 days. It goes from April 1st to April 11th. So I'll still be missing out on a couple starts from him regardless. Carrasco will miss probably the first month. They're saying he'll be out until at least late April, so I won't have him available either. But I'll still have 8 starting pitchers in total who will start healthy, and as everyone is well aware, they're very high quality starting pitchers. On my end, on the offense, George Springer is somebody I'll have to look out for. He has the grade 2 oblique strain. They seem to think that he'll be ready to start the season, but it's kind of weird to me in oblique strain that they're that confident with it. So the other injuries I had on the offense seem to have cleared up. It looks like Sean Murphy should be ready to start this season after the lung issue he had. So while I will have to pick up a couple relievers and I'll have a couple extra roster spots once some of these guys become IL eligible. I think this roster, for the most part, is ready to start the season. I'm feeling pretty good about my odds. I mean, just because I think I have the better team. And the last time we had a regular season, I did go 19-3, beating most of you also. And I dominated the Roto regular season in terms of points. So I'm feeling pretty good, but you never know. I mean, Clayton and Jake, I thought they have a pretty sneaky good team. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump over to my matchup. I am facing Connor and Connor. And this is one that before the Eloy news, I was a little worried it could be a little spooky. Connor I don't believe he's ever won more than 3 matchups in a matchups-based regular season. Yeah, he is a combined 6-35-3. So it's been rough for him, but he has a better team this year than he's had before. But I think the Eloy news means that I should be comfortable beating him to start out this season. I like my team. I don't have any real notable injuries unless Trent Grisham's thing turns out to be serious. But yeah, I've never had a matchups-based regular season where I was expecting to win a lot of games. So it'll be exciting to, I guess, not be at the bottom, to be able to improve on my 12-28 all-time record, which is, I mean, it's that low for a couple reasons outside of quality of team, but I can gain some wins on the Chicken Tendies or the Bellies or Andrew's team, which has a better record than me through this stage.
Yeah, definitely. I'm surprised you didn't discuss the Kyle Freeland injury. Sidelined for at least a month. That's a big deal. We all know your love for Kyle Freeland. And Liam Hendricks got kidney stones, so that's not fun.
Yeah, Freeland isn't IL eligible yet, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, the kidney stones for Hendricks are a little weird. He should be fine, but just one of those injuries you don't see very often, and you don't know how it affects a player.
Yeah, that just sounds painful. I don't envy him, and we've already gotten to Connor's team. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to add about his team other than the Eloy injury?
No, not particularly, other than the fact that I want to see what sort of stats he does get from his pitchers as a whole.
Makes sense. You want to jump into the next matchup then?
Yeah, there are 3 more matchups. Which one do you want to talk about next?
Well, Yuki and Alex were both playoff teams last year. That might be the next best matchup this week, and I think there's certainly some interesting storylines here.
Yeah, I certainly agree with Alex's team being, I guess they're solid. They're probably on the outside looking into the playoffs, but they're a decent team. They were picked to finish last in the OOTP regular season. We'll see how they finish in that, but they were 6th seed. I guess they played like one. Yuki, on the other hand, neither of us believe that he is a good enough team to repeat in the playoffs. But the fact that he goes out and talks a lot of smack to people will make any of his matchups interesting. Neither team is dealing with anything crazy injury-wise. I know Randy Rosarena has missed a couple spring training games, but he should be fine. On the other hand, Alex is going to be missing Brendan Rodgers, and then of course Framber Valdez. We've talked about at length, but I'm weirdly curious about this matchup as well, just to see these are both teams that surprised us last year, and we don't know what to expect from them this year.
I'm not really sure who's going to win this matchup. I don't think it would surprise me either way. I will say that I think Alex has the better team. I think they're in the playoff hunt, but I think you're right. They're on the outside looking in. And I do think that Connor suffering the Eloy injury kind of helps, Alex's chances of making the playoffs. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless. Looking at these early schedules for them, because I think for some of these middle of the pack teams, it's kind of interesting to see like realistically like how quick they're going to start and how that's going to affect their playoff odds. Yuki's start is not terrible. He plays Alex the first week, and then Clayton and Jake. That should be a harder matchup than Anthony, then me, then Daniel and Alex. So definitely a good chunk of those matchups I feel like are pretty winnable in the first 5 weeks. And then if we look over at Benintendi's Chicken Tendies, they play Yuki, then Anthony, then me, then Daniel and Alex, and Clayton and Jake the first 5 weeks. So again, it's not the easiest schedule, but definitely not the hardest schedule either. So whatever team wins week 1 should get a nice advantage for what should be a decent start of the season. And one last thing I'll note, not that it really means anything, but Alex did finish 4-1-1 in the Roto regular season if you just looked at it by the head-to-head matchups that everybody played that week, which was a better record than I had. He technically won our division because I was 4-2. He was 4-1-1. He like crushed me 10-2 like the 5th week. So who knows? Maybe they're a little better than we're giving them credit for.
That's true. I guess we'll see. The next matchup I wanted to talk about is another one between two teams where I don't really know what to expect from them. They're both kind of in the hunt for that 6th seed. It's the Fighting Bellies against Team Resnick. We do give the Fighting Bellies a lot of grief for not setting their rosters super well. And even to this point, they are missing a util slot, which could hurt their chances in the counting stats. But they do have a lot of great players. They have, Arenado, Seager, Lux, and Bellinger, of course, is a phenomenal top 4. That's as good as any team's best 4 hitters. So they could it really just depends on how well they set their team and I guess what they do in their rotation, because they're not super inspiring there, especially with Severino out for a while and Lance McCullers, who knows how many innings he's going to pitch this year. And then Team Resnick, I've always been very high on, but the pitcher injuries are definitely a real thing that they have to worry about as well. Tarek Skubal starting the season in Detroit's rotation is a big win for Anthony. And I think I probably trust him to win this first matchup. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm picking Anthony just because I'm a bit concerned that, Daniel and Alex are going to set their lineup. Like you said, the util spot not being filled. I'm sure they'll take a look before the season and fill some of these spots. But, I trust Anthony's management a little more here. I think they both definitely have interesting teams. Let's keep in mind, Anthony was a playoff team the second year and actually did pretty solid the first year. I think he was just on the outside looking in, and had we had a 16 playoff that year, I think he would have made it. But we only had 4 teams making the playoffs the first year. But I think a key thing with Anthony's team now is his pitching's healthy, which it wasn't last year. Soroka's not healthy, but Paxton, Carlos Martinez, AJ Puck, Charlie Morton, Dane Dunning, Corey Kluber are healthy, although Kluber's velocity has been down this spring. So that's one thing to look out for. So maybe Anthony bounces back a little bit. I think he'll be in that mix of teams that could potentially make the playoffs, but I'm not exactly predicting him to be, an elite team by any means, or kind of a favorite to maybe come out with the 5th or the 6th seed. So it'll be interesting to watch. But looking at Anthony's schedule to start out, playing Daniel and Alex and Zach, and then Yuki, then Clayton and Jake, and then me. He could hypothetically start out 3-0, and I wouldn't be surprised. So, the potential is definitely there. Now, the schedule gets really hard after that, so that's pretty rough. And then for the Fighting Bellies, kind of the same deal. They play the same 5 teams the first 5 weeks. I guess the trend here that I wasn't thinking of is that everybody plays within their division first. So first 5 games are the same. And even then they play Andrew week 6. So perhaps if you're setting your lineup and things are going well, maybe they could get off to a pretty hot start. So we'll see. I think what we're seeing more this year is a lot of these teams in the middle have a bit more optimism, and there's I think a bit more of an opportunity for them to make the playoffs. I still think there's this top tier, but I do think that a lot of these middle teams have moved up from kind of being closer to the bottom tier to maybe being closer to the top tier.
Yeah, I mean, there are 11 teams that could realistically make the playoffs this year.
I think so too. So,
yeah, sorry, Andrew.
Yeah, yeah. No offense, Andrew. You're a playoff team in my heart, but
yeah. And he's doing incredibly well in hockey. His team is very scary there.
No, and I do think he's making a lot of the right moves in baseball. I mean, we talked about the Yarborough trade. I think he had the right idea with the Sale deal, and perhaps that pans out. Although I think you and I were not as high on what he got in that deal. He has added a couple of decent long-term pieces over the course of the past year, but
yeah. And speaking of Andrew, he faces off against Ruthvik and Nick in week 1.
Yeah, I think this should be a pretty easy win for Ruthvik and Nick, although a couple pitcher injuries to look out for. A hairline fracture in the right forearm for Zach Gallen. Doesn't look like he'll be available to start opening day. It doesn't really look like there's a concrete timeline. Nick Anderson has right elbow tightness. That's news to me. His fastball velocity is down 4 ticks below his usual velocity.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's not good. If you recall, you and I have talked a couple of times this offseason about how everybody wants Nick Anderson and they're getting good offers, and Ruthvik and Nick won't trade him. So, relievers are volatile. Nick Anderson was terrible in the playoffs. I think like 7 or 8 straight games where he gave up a run. I feel like he might be a little overhyped at this point. I mean, there was a lot of relievers who get the starter really fast and then just collapse. And I'm concerned that that's what Nick Anderson is. And he's not going to get a full complement of saves and holds because, the Rays. So,
yeah. That's certainly interesting. I think he's fine, but maybe not. He's not like a top 2 or 3 reliever. Yeah.
I'd say he's probably like a top 15 reliever, but even then, in a dynasty league, that's someone who should be expendable. But that's just my opinion. On the flip side with Andrew, doesn't really look like any injuries, but we did mention the Kirby Yates injury earlier for EBO's team. Andrew has all of the Blue Jays late inning relievers. Got Rafael Dolis, who I know you're high on, and Jordan Romano. So I think one of them is probably going to step into the closer's role. So he kind of just gained some excess value here. So perhaps they could be trade bait down the road, but should help him out in the short term. That being said, I still think Ruthvik's probably going to win this matchup pretty handedly.
Yeah, the good news for Andrew is that even the worst teams in league history will always win 3 or so matchups per season. So maybe this week is the one for Andrew. He's got to win a few. He's not going to go winless.
Yeah, I mean, Connor did beat Eric and Zane in back-to-back weeks before, so maybe it could happen for Andrew. Although if I'm Andrew, I'm kind of rooting to lose every single week so I could be atop the lottery odds.
That is true. I think Andrew's pretty safe at being at the top of the lottery odds, but you never know. If your mind's set on getting lighter or rocker, you want to do everything you can to lose as many games as possible.
No, that's very fair. And I mean, he'll definitely get a good head start on that because it seems like 11 of the 12 teams in this league think that they are playoff teams or close to it. And Andrew, I think, is the only team that realistically in his head thinks/knows that he is rebuilding. Mm-hmm. So I think that will give him a head start. And I think you're right. He's probably the odds-on favorite for the number 1 pick or the number 1 lottery odds, and I'd be pretty shocked if anybody else seriously challenges him for that.
Here's a fun fact. Andrew's team is 3-1 all time against Ruthvik and Nick's team.
Really?
And they've never lost to my team.
Interesting. Well, maybe it'll pick up win number 4.
Yeah, we'll find out next week. Yeah. Anything else about week 1 that we wanted to mention before we say goodbye?
No, I will say this just to give my projected winners kind of overall here. I think I will win this week over Clayton and Jake. I think Ruthvik and Nick will beat Andrew. I think Zane will beat Eric, but it'll be close. I think you'll beat Connor. I'm going to take Anthony over Daniel, and Alex. And I'm going to say Alex and Yuki is a toss-up, but I'm going to slightly lean towards Alex and Zach here, just because I just don't trust Yuki's pitching.
Yeah, I think our opinions are getting more and more similar by the week because I agree with you on all six of those. Let me throw out a curveball here. I'm gonna say Anthony's team and Daniel and Alex's team are going to tie this week.
Ooh.
We're gonna have our first tie of the season.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. It does help though. We have an even number of categories. It makes tying a little bit easier.
They're 2-2 against each other all time. Let's keep that record even at 2-2-1.
Yeah, I will say if there is a quote unquote upset of the week, I think it would be Eric over EBO. And I'm definitely not overlooking Clayton and Jake because I think, I like to think I'm going to win every matchup, but I know that I'm inevitably going to lose a couple matchups in my march to the playoffs. So, I don't want to get too cocky or anything. But one last thing I wanted to do before we signed off here is who are we projecting the 6 playoff teams to be, and who are we projecting is going to win the league? I know we did our power rankings early at the beginning of the offseason, but I think it'd be fun to establish our predictions early on so we can revisit these in the offseason.
Yeah, so I think the top 3 is pretty set. You at number 1, EBO at 2, and me at 3. Although I could easily see myself at second, and I can squint and see myself overtaking you, but it's not likely. I could also see myself easily as low as 5. I could see EBO anywhere really if their strategy goes very badly, but realistically I think they're the second team. Number 4 is probably Ruthvik and Nick. Number 5, I think I gotta go with Eric, just because his team is a lot better than it was when he missed the playoffs last year, and I think the matchup-based regular season plays to his strengths a little better. And then the 6th playoff team could be one of a number of teams, really, but I know who you're going to pick, so I'm going to pick a different team and go with, you can throw a dartboard at it. I'm going to go with Anthony.
Ooh, I can't put Anthony as one of my top 6 teams, I think. I'm going to go with a slightly different order than you of the seeding, though. I think that you and I will get the buys. I think I'll be the 1 seed, you'll be the 2 seed. I think EBO will be the 3 seed. I think it's going to be tough for them with that pitching strategy. I think they're going to have to make some tweaks and some adjustments early on. And until they really get that solid crop of bullpen arms established, I think they're going to run into some trouble. So I'm a little concerned for them. One thing that does give them an advantage, a quirk of the schedule, is that I only play EBO once, because you play every team twice except for one, because there's only 23 weeks in a season. So a minor advantage that both of our teams will get. But the number 4, I think, is Ruthvik. I agree with you there. I think Eric is probably going to be the 6th seed. I think he makes the playoffs. He's going to figure out his wizardry. But again, and I've discussed this a lot in the Slack, but I think there's a difference between Eric years 1 and year 2 and Eric year 3 and year 4, where year 1 and year 2, he did a lot of just streaming, but he also had a lot of very established studs that you could trust. Jacob deGrom was on those rosters. Trevor Story was on those rosters. There's a couple other players like that. Now, he somewhat, I feel went back and got a couple more established players this offseason. For example, when he got the Luke Voits, he got the Whit Merrifields, he got the Jose Ramirez's, but I'm still not trusting the Josh Rojas, Dylan Moores, the Cole Calhouns, and even some of his young pitching, while I think is solid, there's still some question marks, i.e. Tyler Glasnow still never started more than 11 games in a season for the Rays yet. So I'm just not ready to declare this roster as a 5th best team. I think Clayton and Jake are going to figure out a way to be that 5th seed. And then the way I see the playoffs going, I think EBO would beat Eric in a 3v6 matchup, and I'd take Ruthvik over Clayton and Jake in a 4v5 matchup, which I think sets up the playoffs to be the exact same as it was this past year, except you would be playing Zane and Max, and I'd be playing Ruthvik. I think I'd beat Ruthvik. I think you would defeat EBO just because I think you have the offense to compete with them. They might not be as good, but I'm pretty high on some of your young guys taking the next steps, such as Alec Boehm and Vlad Jr., especially Vlad Jr. He looks really good right now. But then I think I'll beat you in the finals, and I'm taking myself as the repeat champion.
Well, yeah, I think you're the front runner until proven otherwise. It'd have to take a very bold prediction to have anyone other than you as the league champion.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's some strong contenders, but yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to say someone else is going to take over. I mean, I'm certainly not going to predict it. If someone else wants to predict it, be my guess, but I'm not going to predict otherwise.
But yeah, looking forward to week 1, and best of luck to every team out there. And we'll talk to you again with the results of this week. We'll see what we got right and wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, best of luck, everyone. And let's have a great fantasy season. I'm excited that we are finally getting underway.
Let's begin again. Let's begin again, like Martin Luther said.